All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we're diving deep into a world that really plays on some of our deepest fears.
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking about manipulation, hidden systems,
Oh.
that unsettling feeling that things might not be what they seem.
Yeah.
Our source material today is a little different, a little unique.
Mm.
It's a fictional podcast episode, actually,
All right.
describing a movie concept called The Unseen Job.
Interesting.
And it is a psychological thriller, let me tell you.
I bet.
It's one that'll stick with you.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, you're ready.
Definitely. It's fascinating how this fictional concept
Yeah,
really taps into some real anxieties we all have about the world around us.
absolutely.
Like the idea that a totally ordinary job
Right.
could actually be a carefully constructed trap
Yeah.
designed to break you down psychologically. I
Right,
mean,
yeah.
that's the stuff of nightmares.
Really is. It really is. And the podcast introduces us to this guy, Sam Hart.
Okay.
He seems like your average guy, totally average, mundane job.
Right.
Repackaging, assembling, the kind of work, that
right.
most of us probably wouldn't think twice about.
Exactly.
But that's what makes his journey so unsettling.
Totally. Totally. The ordinariness of his life.
Right.
That routine, the work, it kind of lulls you into this false sense of security.
Yes.
Just like it does for Sam.
Exactly.
And then slowly
Yeah.
things start to unravel.
Yeah. It starts with these little details, things that seem a little off, but not enough to sound any major alarms. The podcast mentions these mysterious components that he's working with and zero information about the project.
Right.
He's basically working in a black box,
Oh, wow.
which would make anybody feel at least a little uneasy.
For sure. And that unease.
Yeah.
That's the key.
I think so.
It's like a seed of doubt
Yeah.
that gets planted in his mind and just slowly starts to grow.
Right.
And the podcast really shows how that uncertainty,
Yeah.
How it can warp your perception, how it can make you question everything you thought you knew.
It makes me think about confirmation bias,
Oh, interesting.
Once you start suspecting something, you see evidence for it everywhere,
Right.
even if it's not really there.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Our minds they're wired to look for patterns, make connections.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can really lead us down a rabbit hole of paranoia,
Totally.
especially when we're dealing with the unknown.
Oh, absolutely. And for Sam, that paranoia,
Right.
it just escalates, it consumes him.
Yeah.
The podcast really captures the psychological impact as he starts to realize
Yeah.
he might be more than just an employee.
Hmm.
He might be the subject of this experiment.
Wow.
The idea of being manipulated without
Yeah.
even knowing, being a pawn in someone else's game,
Oh, yeah.
it's a terrifying thought.
It is a fear that's deeply rooted in all of us, think about that classic horror movie trope,
Oh, yeah.
the house with a dark secret, right?
Yeah. Or the creepy stalker,
Yeah.
always watching you.
It's that fear of the unknown,
Yeah.
of those forces that are just beyond our control.
Right. And the unseen Job takes that fear and puts it in a context
Yeah.
that feels super relevant
Oh, for sure.
to our modern lives. We're
Right.
surrounded by these systems, these institutions that we don't
Yeah.
fully understand, like bureaucracies, algorithms, corporations.
Yeah.
It's easy to feel like you're just being swept along,
I know what you mean.
without any real agency.
Exactly, and that's what makes Sam's story so unsettling.
I agree.
He's not just a victim of some mastermind, right?
No.
He's a cog in a machine that he doesn't even realize he's a part of.
Right, and the podcast describes this facility where they end up taking Sam.
Okay.
It's cold, sterile, just designed to strip away his individuality
Yeah.
and break down his psyche.
It's designed to induce paranoia, and despair, yeah.
The podcast mentions distorted sounds, shifting walls, freezing temperatures.
Oh, wow.
It creates this feeling of claustrophobia,
I'd bet.
disorientation, like you're in a nightmare you can't wake up from.
What's really effective is how they use those details,
Right.
those sensory details, to mirror Sam's internal state.
Yes.
So the distorted sounds, they become this metaphor for his distorted thinking.
Right.
The shifting walls are his crumbling sense of reality.
Exactly.
Like the environment itself is a manifestation of his paranoia.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's brilliant.
It
It's
is.
the way they blur those lines between the physical and the psychological.
It makes you wonder.
It does. It really does.
Is Sam being driven mad by the environment?
Right.
Or is the environment just a reflection of his own inner turmoil?
It's a question the podcast leaves open, and it adds another layer of complexity.
Totally. Makes you question reality itself. Like, how much of what we perceive is actually true?
It's like that saying, we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are.
Exactly.
Right.
And for Sam, the way he sees the world, it's becoming more and more warped by his fear and his paranoia.
And that's what makes his journey so compelling.
It really is. As his paranoia grows, he becomes more and more desperate to escape this nightmare.
Right.
He even tries to write a resignation letter, like a plea for freedom.
Oh, wow.
But it's almost heartbreaking because, it's futile.
Yeah.
Like, the system has him firmly in its grasp.
It's like watching a fly struggle in a spider web.
Yes, exactly.
You know there's no way out.
Right.
But you can't help but feel that dread
Exactly.
as the web tightens.
And the podcast doesn't shy away from that dread at all.
No.
Like, they describe his capture in stark detail.
Yeah.
Agents bursting into his apartment, no explanation.
Oh, wow.
No chance for resistance.
It's chilling.
It is.
It really makes you wonder about, like, the point at which our choices really matter.
Right.
Like, is there any point in fighting back against a system that's already decided your fate?
That's a question that philosophers, psychologists have grappled with for centuries.
Right.
But in Sam's case, the answer seems to be a resounding no.
Wow.
The podcast makes it clear that he's been selected, groomed for this, every step of his life leading him to this moment.
That's where it takes a really dark turn.
Yeah.
It's not just the confinement or the sensory manipulation.
It's the psychological manipulation.
Exactly.
It's how the system has shaped his thoughts, his beliefs, without him even realizing it.
They describe this facility as like a sprawling labyrinth, each chamber designed to exploit a different aspect of the human psyche.
Like rooms that induce sensory overload, distort perceptions, trigger those primal fears.
It's like a physical manifestation of his inner turmoil.
Exactly.
And the fact that he unknowingly helped build these devices, that he contributed to his own psychological torture.
Oh, wow.
That just adds a whole other layer of horror.
It's like he's been tricked into betraying himself.
Yeah.
It really is it's a brilliant exploration of manipulation.
It is.
It's not just controlling his actions.
Right.
It's shaping his perception of reality.
Yeah.
Making him complicit in his own downfall.
And it raises questions about our own lives.
Definitely.
Like, how often are we manipulated by systems that we don't even realize we're a part of?
Like, think about advertising.
Oh, yeah.
The algorithms that curate our social media feeds.
Right.
Are we really making our own choices?
Right.
Or are we being nudged in certain directions without even knowing it?
It's a good question.
It is. And the Unseen Job pushes that idea even further.
Okay.
By introducing the machine itself.
Right.
Like the ultimate tool of psychological control. And it's not just a device for physical torture.
Right.
It's designed to tear apart Sam's mind piece by piece.
Like how?
Using his own memories and fears against him.
The way they describe it, it's almost like a personalized nightmare generator.
It is. It is.
That's a terrifying concept.
It is.
Because it suggests that our most private selves can be weaponized against us.
Right. And it's not just Sam.
No.
The podcast makes it clear that there are others trapped in this facility, each of them screaming out in agony.
Oh, wow.
As their minds are systematically dismantled.
That's an important detail.
It is.
Because it expands the scope of the horror.
Yeah.
It's not just about one man's suffering.
Right.
It's about a system that's capable of crushing human minds on a massive scale.
On a massive scale.
And it raises the stakes for the listener.
It does.
Because it suggests that anyone could be a target.
That's right.
It reminds me of those conspiracy theories about mind control experiments, conducted by governments or shadowy organizations. We dismiss them as paranoia, but what if there's a grain of truth to them? What if there are forces out there that are actively trying to manipulate our thoughts, control our behavior?
That's the unsettling question that the Unseen Job leaves us with. And it lingers long after the podcast ends.
Right.
Because even if the details of the story are fictional, that underlying fear, the fear of being controlled by unseen forces, that's all too real.
And that brings us to the most disturbing part of the whole story. That final revelation that just completely shatters Sam's understanding of this whole thing.
Of his place in the experiment.
Right.
It turns out he wasn't just a random victim. He was chosen groomed, conditioned for this very purpose.
Like he was living someone else's life.
Right.
Performing actions that had a meaning. He couldn't even fathom.
And he had no idea.
That's the scariest part.
It really is. It's the insidious brilliance of the whole thing.
It is.
This system in the unseen job, it doesn't rely on brute force or overt coercion.
Right.
It works through subtle manipulation, exploiting our natural tendency to trust authority.
Right.
Follow patterns.
It's a chilling reminder that even in a seemingly free society, we can be controlled in ways we might not even recognize.
It's true.
It's like we're all sleepwalking through life,
following
these paths that are laid out for us, never questioning where they might lead.
And this movie concept, it makes you wonder.
It does.
How much of our own lives are really the result of our own choices?
Right.
How much is dictated by forces beyond our control?
The podcast ends with this really unsettling question. How far would you go if you realized you'd been part of a horrific experiment all along? It's a question that's been haunting me.
I bet.
Ever since I heard it.
It's powerful because it forces us to confront our own vulnerabilities.
I think so.
Our susceptibility to manipulation.
Right.
Makes us wonder if we would have the courage to break free.
Right, from a system that had us so completely in its grasp.
Exactly. And I think what makes the Unseen Job so effective is that it taps into this fear that's becoming more and more prevalent.
Oh, yeah.
The fear of losing control, of being a pawn in a game we don't understand.
It's a fear that's fueled by the complexity of our world.
I agree.
You know, the reliance on technology, the erosion of privacy.
It's all connected.
It is. And the movie concept, it doesn't offer any easy answers.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell us how to escape the system or how to fight back against these unseen forces.
But it does something maybe even more important.
What's that?
It makes us aware of the possibility.
Okay.
It plants that seed of doubt, a sense of unease. That can hopefully make us more critical.
Yeah.
More questioning.
More aware.
More aware of the forces that might be shaping our lives.
I think that's a really valuable takeaway.
It is.
We don't need to become paranoid, distrustful of everything and everyone.
No, but we do need to be more mindful of the choices we make.
For sure.
The information we consume, the systems we participate in.
We need to ask questions.
Yes.
Challenge assumptions.
Exactly.
Be willing to step outside our comfort zones.
It's about cultivating that healthy skepticism.
Right.
A willingness to look beyond the surface.
Yeah.
Question the narratives that we're being fed.
Recognizing that even in a world that seems increasingly controlled and manipulated,
we still have the power to choose awareness.
Absolutely.
To seek understanding.
Yes.
And strive for agency in our lives.
Beautifully put. And I think that's a message worth remembering.
It is.
So to our listener, the next time you find yourself just going through the motions, following the rules, trusting the system without question, take a moment to pause. Ask yourself, what's the unseen job here?
Right.
What am I contributing to?
Good question.
And is this a system I really want to be a part of?
Yeah.
Those are questions worth pondering. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged.
Absolutely.
And most importantly, stay aware